Welcome to episode 5 of Thermal Birding. I'm Ben Dolan from West Midlands Ringing Group. Hopefully you've all caught up on the other previous episodes. Today we're joined by Karoliina and Paul Hotwood. And Karoliina is going to talk today around waders and in particular great snipe. So I just want to say thanks for coming on, Karoliina, especially it's a bit later where you are and you probably prefer to be out lamping and dazzling tonight.
Well, no problem about that. It's almost 1 meter of snow here, so.
Oh, that's slightly different then. We've got a lot of rain.
Yeah, it's not minus 36 anymore, but still.
Still got some snow.
Yeah.
So really what we want to know is I'm going to stop sharing the screen in a minute so you can bring up yours. And I'd just like to just to talk to us about thermal. We've seen some of your work on Facebook and stuff, and it's phenomenal. So we're just really interested in how you use thermal, really. So I'll leave it with you.
I think it's now working. Okay.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about the technical problems. Seems like I'm almost a boomer with this PowerPoint sharing thing. I am Karoliina Hamalainen, and today I'm talking about ringing with thermal. And even though it's me who is talking, this is also the results I'm showing here. It's as much the work of Laura Oinas, who is not here right now. So whenever I'm talking about what we have done and so on, it's me and Laura together, not only me, even though I am the one talking. Here is a rather cheesy picture of quite nice species. Here we have a rough golden plover, great snipe, common snipe, and a Jack Snipe. Okay, it worked. So how the ringing numbers were in Finland before starting using thermal? Here are 2 species that are quite a lot ringed in UK, as far as I know. And as you see, the numbers, they are not that great. Also, sorry about that woodcock picture, but it's the most ugly woodcock I have ever seen, and I wanted to share the joy with you too. So this is what it looked. This is what it looked like until 2021. I got thermal in 2022, and that was the year Laura also got her thermal. So regarding the woodcock, for example, and the golden plover, the numbers just plummeted.
Wow.
So it made a huge difference. And regarding woodcock, most of the increase is from the adult birds, but for the golden plover, it's also from the increased number of chicks ringed. I know that the numbers of the thermal, they are still nothing compared to UK numbers with these 2 species, but nevertheless, they show that thermal had a huge impact, and well, mostly it was the effort of me and Laura, so, and maybe a few other ringers. And then some other species. I have here a Jack Snipe and great snipe. With the Jack Snipe, this ringer called Johanna Lakka, she started a project with them in Joensuu area in 2014, I think, and that's when you can see that their ringing numbers started really to rise. She was using these walking traps and also dazzling during the night. And for the great snipe, most of the years there were no ringings at all. And during the best year in 2005, there were 8 birds ringed. And then after I and Laura got thermal in 2022. For the Jack Snipe, a huge increase. And for the Great Snipe, we just redid the whole statistics for the species. So this is kind of like in general with several, with a few example species, what kind of impact thermal has had. And for the next parts of my presentation, at first I'm going to talk about using thermal with breeding birds, finding nests, finding chicks. And then in the second part, I'm going to go more into dazzling with thermal. Regarding breeding birds, I'm going to use this one Pöyrisjärvi project as an example. It's a project of I and Laura. Laura figured out the place just by looking at the maps and reports from nature conservation areas, like, hey, this could be a nice place. And Pöyrisjärvi, it's not located in eastern Finland, it's located in the very north. And here is the map of the location of the area, and then a close-up map, what it looks like. As you can see, it's this beautiful mosaic of mountain heaths and mires, mostly balsa mires. But it's a beautiful area, and even the location and the natural habitat there is, it's truly a paradise for many breeding waders. Also, for a bird ringer, it's quite challenging place. The terrain is rather difficult. Here is an ortho image of one of the blessed areas in the Pöyrisjärvi area. And you can figure out it's not that easy to walk in there. It's just mire after mire after mire. Also, during the breeding time, many wader species, they are extremely wary. And well, everyone knows that golden plovers, they can notice you like a mile away and they will start screaming. And if they have any chicks that are old enough, the chicks will run away long before you reach them. Also, there are absolutely no good hiding places. You can't drive there by car. There are not really any rocks or anything behind which you could hide. It's just rather flat and mires. And even if there were any hiding places, there's so many mosquitoes that you would die an agonizing death before finding anything. And also, even if during the summer, the air can be quite warm, up to 20 degrees, the ground is still very cold. And what this means is that if you are disturbing a nest for a long time, and the parent isn't allowed to go warm up the chicks will get cold. So you have to be, oh, I was not supposed to press that already, but you have to be quite quick. And with thermal camera, all of these obstacles become a lot easier to work around, because you don't have to hide so well. It doesn't matter so much, even if the terrain is difficult. And even with easy species, you can find the chicks much faster. So 2022 was our pilot year, where we were kind of like testing if it's worth it. And after we found out that, yeah, it's a good place, we decided that each year we are going to spend approximately 10 days in the field. 10 days is, well, we are mostly moving during the nights. And each day we are birding 8 to 17 hours. And we are moving mostly by bike, which is easy and lovely. but also by canoeing. In typical days, we usually move something like from 10 to 20 kilometers in one day. Of course, the actual amount of walking and so on is much harder, because when you're searching for the nests or chicks, you are walking in zigzags. Here are some results, mostly from last year, 2023. We ringed altogether almost 180 waders. And our most numerous species was broad-billed sandpiper. We got altogether 45 birds, of which 11 were adults and 34 were chicks. Then our second most common species was red-necked phalarope, altogether 28 birds, of which 9 were adults and 19 were chicks. And then some other examples, Temming stint, altogether 28 ringings, and ruff, 13 ringings. Then we also got some golden plovers, wood sandpipers, and so on. But nevertheless, quite nice set of wader species breeding in one single area. And we also got quite nice other species and surprises, such as long-tailed squaws, Arctic terns, and northern pintails. But our absolutely favorite bird ringing experience was this species. I'm not going to reveal what it was yet. The species, no one in Finland had seen the chicks of this particular species. It was, I think, almost in 30 years. And here is one place where we got our last clutch of the species with 3 chicks. And even though it might look like it's rather easy to just walk in there, if you try to step on the mire, you will instantly fall through. But fortunately, the mires in that area, they are usually only 1 meter deep, so it doesn't matter, but it's still very difficult to move in there. Here's a picture of our prized ringing clutch, and the species is a Jack Snipe. And well, this is one of the species we would have never been able to ring as a chick without thermal, unless we were to have a great amount of luck. Because in many wader species, even in ruff, the female or the parents, they make some kind of alarms, they start behaving differently and so on when the chicks are nearby. But as far regarding our experience with Jack Snipe, the parent or the female, it doesn't make any sound at all, and it will only move away when you are about to step on it. And all of the Jack Snipes we found was because we were trying to find something else. In this example, of which I have this picture of the habitat, we were trying to look for a ruff, and we had kind of like given up and we're walking away, and I was scanning the area with thermal, and then I noticed something warm, and I told Laura, like, haha, I found the ruff chick, it's there, I'm going to go get it. And when I finally made it to that area with longer, taller vegetation, and I saw with thermal that it's there, but I couldn't still see it with my eyes. And it suddenly took off, and it was a Jack Snipe, not a ruff. And then we started looking for the chicks. And the chicks of Jack Snipes, they are incredibly talented at hiding. They don't just lay down, they actually walk inside all of those vegetation patches. They walk in, and even with thermal, there's only usually very tiny angle where you can see the cheek glowing from within the vegetation patch. So that would have been totally impossible. And also when the female Jack Snipe, when it returns to the chicks, it doesn't fly there. It can walk at least some tens of meters, totally silent, and it's impossible to see it with bare eye, but with thermal you can see the female walking back to the chicks. And here are some more pictures, because oh my, aren't they cute?
They are the best looking chicks I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
And it was our dream species, and we never thought that we would be able to have a chance to actually hold them, to ring them, and so on. It was amazing.
Their plumage is very much like the lichens and the moss behind. When you saw the pictures, they fit right into the lichens and the mosses. The camouflage is amazing.
Yeah, and when they are standing still in the mire, it's just, well, unless you know exactly where the chick is, then you can see it, but otherwise it's really difficult. And also given the fact that they often seem to go to hide inside the roots of the vegetation, so really tricky species to find.
So before this, Karoliina, how many Jack Snipe pullers or chicks had been ringed in Finland?
Well, the last one was in 90s, I think, and it was, well, I think 2 chicks or something like that.
So
but I don't know.
Is brilliant.
Yeah. And there was one scenario where other ringers, they had found a dead snipe chick from a mire, and they were trying to find someone who has seen a Jack Snipe chick, so that they would figure out if it's a common snipe or a Jack Snipe chick, but they couldn't find anyone to identify the dead chick. So it was really extraordinary.
I'm jealous. That's all.
They're just amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, and they were so cute, and we were extremely happy.
I bet.
And is your plan to go back this year to carry on?
Yeah, we got actually funding for the costs of getting to the area and buying. We are equipping golden plovers and broad-billed sandpipers with color rings, or like flags.
Yes.
So yeah, we all have funding for this year too. After that, we don't have one, but we are trying to look out if we can get funding somewhere else. But even if we don't get, we are going to, well, our plan so far is to continue this project till forever. So.
But internationally, for those people watching, this is huge, isn't it? That you've come up with a technique that is changing what you know about breeding Jack Snipe, and it will change what we know about the species in the long run. So hopefully there is funding opportunities from the people who are watching and from the people who should be really interested in this just enigmatic, beautiful species.
Yeah, and we also hope to get some sort of data loggers to the broad-billed sandpiper, because it's one of the most declined species, waders species we have. But yeah, let's see how the next year goes, and if we get some recoveries, then it means that maybe equipping them with loggers is worth it. But yeah, this.
That's brilliant.
It'd be a dream to catch one that said Helsinki, wouldn't it? Where we are.
Yeah.
Very.
But yeah, this was kind of like the short overview of what we have been doing at Pöyrisjärvi. And here, like what we think are the benefits of using thermal. As I said earlier, even the easy species you can find faster. So it means that you are disturbing the breeding pair or the chicks for less time, which is always good.
Absolutely.
Here is wood sandpiper, which is one of those so-called easy species. And some species, like the Jack Snipe, can be almost impossible to find, or up to impossible to find without thermal. Especially if the chicks are, these are ruffs, and if the chicks are large, and if the terrain is challenging, or if the parent bird is not really easy to figure out what it's doing, then thermal can be a huge help. For example, these ruffs, I think we wouldn't have been able to find without thermal because they were so large. They were, I think, within 100-meter radius from each other, scattered around. Third reason to use thermal is that if you want to catch also the parent birds, you usually have to find all the chicks. And there are two reasons to that. First, because when you are catching the parent, it can't go to warm up the chicks and so on. And especially if the weather is cold, if the terrain is, if the ground is cold, if the chicks are small, it's really important that chicks are kept in warm while you are catching the parent bird. And secondly, you have much better success rate catching the parent if you have already captured all the chicks from the field. Otherwise, the parent, if there's like one chick left there, it's very tricky to try to get the parent bird because it knows where the chick is and it goes there and keeps it warm and it doesn't care that you have the rest. But of course, thermal is not kind of like a miracle device. It has its own limits. And the most important one, I think, is that you still have to be able to read the bird behavior. You still have to know different species, how they behave if they have nest, small chicks, large chicks. And after you can do that, after you can pinpoint the approximate location, and you also know what kind of microhabitats the chicks or nests are usually located, then using thermal is a huge help. Of course, well, everyone who uses thermal hates sun. And
yeah. But
also 2 cold nights are not that great because all patches of water, rocks, vegetation patches, all of them will also cause a lot of heat noise.
Yeah.
So the optimal weather is cloudy, maybe slightly rainy, and then usually during the evening or early morning.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we agree on that. Yeah.
Finally, regarding the breeding birds, here's one example, not from Pöyrisjärvi. This is from Joensuu area. Particularly, Laura figured out what kind of habitats the green shanks breed in here. And as you can see from these pictures, when the female or male, when the parent bird is incubating the eggs, technically you can step on it before it leaves. There have been a few cases where I could have just grabbed the bird with my hand because it didn't move anywhere. And particularly if the area is dry, the bird has incredible camouflage, and it can be extremely tricky to try to find the nest. But with thermal and in good weather, it can be surprisingly easy even. And I think altogether we got something like 60-something chicks and 11 adults last year. And it was also a huge increase in the number of green shanks ringed. Typically, there were only none to few chicks ringed in this species. Okay, and although I have been blabbering for so long, let's try to quickly go through the juicy great snipe part.
I think we've got about 5 minutes, I think, so not a problem. Yeah. It's great stuff.
And where we are mostly working at is in eastern Finland, nearby Joensuu area in northern Karelia. We usually start dazzling and looking for birds as soon as it gets dark enough. During the summer, there's no sense of trying to dazzle anything because, well, the night is not really dark at all. And we continue dazzling until the permanent snow cover comes. This is our equipment. We have both Laura and I have our own thermal cameras. Then we use a headlamp, not a torch, because we like having our hands free. And to make the beam more narrow, we have an empty toilet paper roll sticking from our head. Then we have a hand net with 3-meter handle, and we use white noise. We are mostly going through different kind of fields. Here are some examples of the fields. Some are very dry, some are very wet, and some are something in between. 2022, it was by accident that we found our first great snipes, because we were trying to catch some woodcocks and common snipes. And then, boom, there were great snipes. But yeah, it was only in September, so it was already rather late. Then in 2023, we properly started projecting with this species. We started looking for them already in early August. The first bird was caught on 3rd of August and last bird on 19th of October. In northern Karelia, there were altogether 200 great snipes ringed, of which I and Laura got 170 birds. And during our best night, we ringed 20 birds. And I think we had 4 or 5 recoveries from our previous nights. We found out that all the areas that were good for great snipe in 2022 were also good for them last year, unless the field had been heavily modified. And it seems like maybe the great snipe doesn't like that wet areas, or maybe even rather dry. Well, let's see for the next autumn and if we get any recoveries. Here is a table of great snipe ringings in northern Karelia by date and by the bird age. The blue ones are old birds and the orange ones are juvenile, 1 calendar year old birds. And as you can see here, it seems that the peak migration is from early September to middle September, and maybe the old birds, maybe they might move earlier. But one thing that made the early August difficult for catching great snipes was that the fields had not been mowed yet. So the grass was very high, and you couldn't just, if it was a crop field, you couldn't go walking there because it was on crop. So yeah, maybe if we had some fields that had been mowed earlier, maybe we would have gotten more birds also in August. But nevertheless, the migration peak seems to be in September. And if you are wondering why there's that gap there, it's because we were tired and we had to sleep. Like on 10th of September, we did some crazy, inhuman ringing trip, and after that we were dead tired. So there is huge.
Sorry, I was going to say we find similar because the crops, when the crops aren't cut, we struggle to find them, and we do often think, are they there or not? But once they're cropped or mowed, they're there. So it would be interesting.
Yeah, would be nice to have those drone thermal things to go over if it could pick up the heat signals any better.
Yeah, interesting.
Regarding our results from great snipes, there is huge variation in the weight. That seems to be typical to great snipes. The heaviest one was the size of almost a woodcock, whereas the smallest was the size of a fat common snipe. And the fattest great snipes, like you can see the shape, it's like the fat extends all the way up to its tail. And when you hold it, it's like you were holding marshmallow or something. Your hand just drowns in that bird. In the right picture, there is on the left, in the right picture on the left, there is one average great snipe, maybe 180 grams or something. And on the right, there is one bird that was 250 grams or something like that. Nevertheless, even like regarding how far your fingers can reach around the bird, there is a huge difference with the thick ones and smaller ones. We also found out that there might be it seems like there are two different kind of molting patterns in adult birds. In early season, we got birds that had some molt limits in their primaries, often also in secondaries, whereas in late seasons, we got birds with no new feathers. All the feathers were retained and old. This might be sex-related. Many of the birds with all old feathers, many of them were female. Might be that after breeding, they don't have time to start molting. Could be that the birds with no molt limits, that they are late breeders. Maybe their first breeding attempt was unsuccessful. And it could be a difference between northern and southern populations. But well, hopefully we'll know more after next year or this year. Then very quickly about Jack Snipes, because with these we also made a phenomenal ringing result during the best night. Well, it says 23, but I think it was something like 25 ringings. Altogether, I and Laura, we ringed 243 birds. And on the right picture, you can see Laura being only slightly happy about the number of Jack Snipes we have hanging on our car. And based on our results and experience, we wrote this aging criteria guide for the Jack Snipe. Please go check it out if you want. And that's it. Yeah, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you are free to contact us directly or by some other means.
That is amazing. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but just want to say thank you. It's amazing to see what people are doing with thermal these days, and phenomenal the work you're doing as well. And I'm glad that thermal is helping. It's quite interesting what unit you're using as well, because it'd be interesting to see if someone could support you with a newer unit like the Telos, to see what difference that would make on your captures as well compared to the XQ35s.
Yeah, I have just decided I don't want to even try the better ones because I will get all salty that I'm stuck with the old one.
I know what you mean. You got any questions, Hop?
Yeah, Karoliina, just talking about that habitat up in the tundra. But do you fly in there, or can you fly close by before you start canoeing and cycling? Do you fly to that part of northern Finland?
No, I drive there by car, and then I pick up Laura, who is living in Lapland. I pick her up, and then with car full of bicycles and all kind of stuff we have. Then we have this kind of like, it's, I don't know what it's in English, but it's this kind of vehicle that you can use in difficult terrain. So we buy a ride from the nearest town to the Pöyrisjärvi area.
And then when you were saying up there the mosquitoes are bad, is that do they impact on the birds up there? Because I suppose there's very few animals. I suppose there's lots of mammals, but do they have a big impact up there? I've seen videos of people fishing in northern Finland. It looks quite challenging.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't really. I think most of the time the chicks, they are protected by their parent because they are being warmed up, but I haven't really noticed that about mosquitoes. There have been some cases of these kind of like bird fly, whatever they are called in English, these huge ectoparasites they often have.
Yeah.
Last year they were really numerous or abundant.
Good name.
Yeah.
So just want to say thanks for the talk that you've given. It's incredible, really, what you've said and the work you're doing and the time and effort you put in. I think one of the key things we try and tell people about with thermal is the reduction of disturbance and time in the field. So it's better value with the thermal because even though, like you're out there for 8 to 17 hours, it's more productive, I imagine, now with thermal than it was previously. I just wondered what you can touch on that.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't have that much experience looking for wader nests before thermal because I kind of like started doing it at the same time. But yeah, for example, with in Pöyrisjärvi area, there are so many wood sandpipers and so on that they are kind of like easy, but if you don't have thermal, you have to still hide, lay down, wait for the parent to call for the chicks, and then you usually, with traditional methods, you usually can get 1 or 2 chicks at the time before you have to go hiding again. Yeah. Whereas with thermal, you can usually find all of them at once.
And how do you catch the adults?
We use numerous different kind of things, depending on the species. For broad-billed sandpipers, we usually catch all the chicks, and after that we put the chicks under our jacket or somewhere warm, and then we have recorded the chick calls with our phone. So, and then we have this mist net that only has like 2 shelves, so there are 3 loops to hold on.
Yeah.
One of the loops goes to your waist and 2 others you hold in your hands, and then we throw our phone that's playing the chick sounds in the middle of the net on the ground, and we lay down with the net closed, and when the parent flies between us looking for the chicks, we quickly open the net and close it back. And
amazing.
That's
incredible.
Flick netting.
Yeah, and I think I like how you were also talking about fieldcraft. So we've had people get thermal and contact us saying, well, we can't find any skylark. You know, we've been in this field and there's no skylark. But what we're trying to say is thermal isn't the answer to everything. You've still got to have a level of fieldcraft to understand where the birds are going to be that you're looking for. So some people were looking for skylarks along the hedgerows. Well, we never ever see skylarks near a hedgerow. They're always further into the field and in big fields. So you've got to have that level of fieldcraft as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, true. And sometimes even if you have good fieldcraft, sometimes it just doesn't make sense why this one particular field, why it's full of birds, and the field next to it that looks exactly similar to a human eye, it has nothing. Sometimes you just have to spend time to go through and look for the birds as well.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So Karoliina, with all your wader species, do you look at anything else? Do you look at owls that are out there? Because I know Finland's really good for different owl species. Are you encountering owls out there?
Yeah, I have caught some short-eared owls and few long-eared owls as well. Then while looking for the waders, other species we have caught during the autumn include red-throated pipit, blue-throat, nightjar, corncrake, crane, all kind of waterfowl and so on. So it's a bit of everything. And that's one thing that makes dazzling with thermal so much fun, because with only dazzling, you can only see certain bird species, but with thermal, you can see so many more. For example, trying to locate small passerines with only a headlamp or a torch, it's quite impossible.
And for us, people sometimes they say it's cheating because the birds can't hide from thermals, but whilst it might be cheating, it's given us so much more data. It's got to be important for the long term. I think especially with your work. And am I right in saying have you had recoveries from your Jack Snipe to the UK now?
I didn't have, but one other bird ringer had. He mostly catches Jack Snipes during the day, so. But yeah, it's one of the very few Jack Snipes where the recovery is not shot in France or shot in Italy.
Yeah.
Well,
and then finally, just for you, you've achieved so much in such a short time. What are your goals now moving forward with the thermal and your ringing?
Do it as much as possible, I think. Particularly in Pöyrisjärvi area, with the green shanks and with the great snipes.
Yeah. Do you think, and I get that what you're doing is September till snow coverage, do you think there's any opportunity to go in the spring where your days are shortening? Or I know that's going to reduce your sleep again, but the birds arriving back?
Yeah, spring is frustrating because there are so many birds and they are so difficult to catch. During the spring, the snow leaves the fields quite late. So there's this period of time when it's dark enough for dazzling, but the fields are covered in snow. And when the fields start melting, there's still mostly snow, and walking quietly in snow is tricky. And when the snow has finally left completely, the nights are getting rather bright again. So I have been doing some thermal bird ringing during the spring also, but it's not nearly as effective. I've been mostly catching some skylarks, and I also used thermal when the nights were already a bit more bright. I used thermal to watch the flight paths of lapwings because they were always coming to sleep in one certain field. I used thermal to look at their flight paths, and then I set up some mist nets in there, and it proved working.
That's brilliant. You've done so much.
Oh, sorry. Well, how many did you catch, the lapwing?
I was trying it for 3 nights, I think, and I got altogether 5. But it was like I was only doing kind of like 1 round and then taking the nets off because they are not moving there during the night time.
Yeah, we struggle
just when they are landing.
Yeah, it's a species we struggle with in fields. We see a lot of them in farmers' fields in arable, but trying to get near them, they're probably almost as hard as common snipes for us over here.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more harder than common snipe. I think last autumn, I and Laura, we got something like maybe even 100 common snipes during the autumn time.
Yeah.
But lapwings only very few, maybe 3, something like that.
I think I've dazzled one ever. I think I've dazzled one. I think I've only ever dazzled one. And I think that one was very stupid. Because I can't catch its friends.
No.
Yeah. But also with the great snipe, on the other hand, I think it's definitely the most easy species to dazzle, even easier than Jack Snipe.
Okay.
But you can't really catch them during the daytime because then they will take off. But during the night, they are even easier than Jack Snipes.
And do you like in the UK, we use a flowing river to mask our walking. Do you use a similar?
Yeah, I use the same. Yeah. Actually, probably the very same soundtrack that you are using.
Yeah.
But it has proven to be the least annoying of the white noises I have tried.
Yeah. We used to use Skylark, didn't we? When we first ever started, but we got a lot of owls down to us.
Yeah, you used to get barn owls flying around your head.
Yeah, so
wow.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, but flowing river is definitely the best one we've used.
Yeah, but well, okay, one quick anecdote, but this autumn or last autumn, the flowing river or the white nose is kind of like tricky because it masks your sound from all the birds, but it apparently also masks it from wolves and bears.
Oh,
and there was
problem.
There was this one field with so many Jack Snipe. It was brilliant. But then when I and Laura were there was a wolf running in between us, and then there were 3 bears. And then in another field before meeting those bears and that wolf, we were in one field where there were, absolutely no birds. It was super boring. But with thermal, I saw that there is some worm on the field. And I told Laura on phone that, okay, I'm coming back to the car. I'm just going to quickly check what the heck that is. I could say that it's not a hare, it's not a fox, it's not a moose, whatever it is. I was marching towards it. Then it got up and there were 1 big warm spot and I think 2 or 3 smaller ones. And I was like, what animal has babies at this time of the year? That's weird. I'm going to go closer to check. And then when I was maybe 50 meters away or something, the animal finally stopped. They were walking straight away from me, so I couldn't say about the shape. Then it finally stopped and turned sideways, and I saw that, it's a mama bear with her babies.
Oh my God.
And then I quickly walked back to the car.
So, it's something we never think about, is it? Because the worst thing we have is a fox. And that's about it. But
we're a very angry rabbit.
Yeah, and we have seen a wallaby once, haven't we?
Twice now.
Wow!
Twice.
Wow!
Yeah. You had one, yeah. I was out in a field in Staffordshire, and we were just walking back to the car. We'd been catching skylarks, and I just looked up and I thought, that's a really unusual hare. And then it started hopping, proper wallaby hopping, just across the fields. It was like, where's this come from? And you thought you saw one the other night, didn't you, Ben, at the side of the road?
Yeah.
So there are some escapees, Karoliina, in the UK. So it's something that you do see, but
no, it's been brilliant. And hopefully you'll join us this time next year to give us an update, maybe, on how you've got on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That'd be
then
amazing.
maybe we have some recoveries of the great snipes too. So
absolutely,
that would be great.
You're lovely. Okay, thank you.